Sawney Bean. Sawney Bean is the cannibal par excellence. When anybody mentions Scottish cannibals, it is Sawney Bean who springs to mind, and no wonder. His is a story of horror, murder, and cannibalism that would be suitable for any late-night Halloween film. Sawney, or Alexander Bean, was supposedly born in what is now East Lothian, not far from Edinburgh, sometime in the 16th century or perhaps earlier. Legends tend to concentrate on the gist of the story rather than specific details such as times and dates. Sawney's father was apparently a ditch digger and hedger, which was a hard job that did not appeal to the son a great deal. He tried for a while, but soon looked for something easier than labouring to earn his daily bread. He found a wife, or at least a woman, and together they left home and wandered across Scotland for a while, until they reached Binnin Head in Carrick, in what is now North Ayrshire. Rather than live conventionally, Sawney and his wife found a deep, secluded cave in the coast, possibly Binnin Cave itself. 200 yards long and with the entrance blocked by the sea at high tide. Here they settled, about halfway between the town of Girvan and the village of Ballantrae. And from here they began to make the country hideous for locals and travellers. The main coast road passed close by, and people began to disappear. At first individually, and then, as the years passed, in pairs, and even quite large parties. At first there was not much notice taken of the odd disappearance, for travel in medieval or even Renaissance Europe was never safe, with footpads, outlaws and robbers joining the natural hazards of flood, shockingly poor roads and fickle weather. But in time, people noticed a pattern. They realised that travellers in the southwest seemed very prone to disappear, and they began to wonder why. Local people became very wary, but despite their caution, they could not work out what was happening. In the meantime, Sawney and Mrs. Bean had been busy. Perhaps the honest toil of ditching was not to their liking, but there were other occupations in which they excelled. As the years passed, they produced 8 sons and 6 daughters, and then 18 grandsons and 14 granddaughters. Indeed, they seemed to breed prolifically, if incestuously, for all the children and grandchildren had only themselves for partners. And as soon as they were old enough, the young Beans played their part in this family business. Some people are born into a culture of cannibalism and know no better. Others have it thrust upon them from necessity and starvation. But Sawney Bean and his wife took to it from choice and proved themselves experts. With the cave a virtually perfect hideaway, they rarely ventured out in daylight, but prowled the roads by night, using their growing clan of predatory monsters to ambush any lone traveller. As the Bean clan grew, they became bolder, tackling larger and larger groups. Once the Beans murdered their victims, they carried the bodies back to their cave, stripped them, cut them up, and ate whatever they most fancied. Whatever was not immediately eaten, they would pickle, presumably in seawater, of which they had an unlimited supply, and the inedible portions were simply thrown into the sea for the tide to distribute wherever it pleased. Perhaps it was the reappearance of these bits and pieces of unfortunate humanity that alerted and alarmed the local folk into taking more direct action. Gathering together, they began to search the area, poking into every nook and cranny, eyeing any stranger with great suspicion, and hanging the odd unfortunate who happened to be a little eccentric in their ways.